Good afternoon once again and welcome to COVID and the Law. This is your legal light and health law in these trying times. Today, COVID and the Law, we're looking at imposition of restrictions, the campaign for lesser punishments. The Ghana Bar Association formally joins the crusade for lesser sanctions for violations of COVID-19 EI protocols. Let's learn about the justifications for this crusade. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. You're welcome back to COVID and the Law. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini. Let's do our news round. There is what JoyNews can report as massive disregard for the COVID-19 protocols, including the mandatory wearing of the masks. The beginning of voter registration this week has made it worse. See more in our news round.
Pointedly, here at the Blizzard Assurance Registration Center, social distancing is not really happening. Many of the people here have started wearing their masks after they've seen our cameras, but what we observed when we came here was that some of them had it in their pocket, some of them were wearing it under their chins. In fact, many of them were not wearing their masks. Social distancing, it's a big problem here.
Social distancing, poor. Nose masks, no. Washing of hands, I am not seeing it. But what I'm seeing really, What I'm seeing really is the thermometer gun. The thermometer gun is being applied.
Okay.
But for the social distancing, you can even see from the cameras that it is not the best. And some of them are not even having their nose masks, and they are even shouting.
David Anna,
yeah.
Okay. Are you a resident here?
Yes, I'm a resident here. We advise most of them to wear it because the thing is very dangerous. The sickness is very dangerous. But to my opinion, I have only one problem to say. This kind of queue is unnecessary. To me, it's very unnecessary. Because why the government didn't want to use the whole one?
I am an official for a political party, right? My people in Choco respected social distancing before. No, it's a problem that they always see. It's a problem we have here. They won't respect it. This is Choco for you.
Okay, we are here at the City Engineers Registration Center 1 and 2, and as you can see, some persons have gathered here outside the presence of the registration center. So, this lady standing here is one of the people deployed here, one of the health persons deployed here to this particular registration center. Hi.
I'm here to check the temperature and to record any case which is beyond me.
Okay.
So I quickly check their temperature before they go wash their hands, then they proceed to the next level.
Our figures are rising astronomically when we are constantly being reminded to observe the COVID-19 protocols.
As we drove through town, the news team observed that out of every 3 persons that walked by, at least one was without a face mask. The worst culprits are the commercial vehicles. The news team stationed at the Paloma bus stop first, and largely, conductors were without mask. Those that wore the mask had them right under their chin. I managed to stop this commercial vehicle after realizing both the driver and conductor were without them.
Because now, no, personally be antim personally woman na share. Now na me year to mutual you na me yitu.
The conductor told me he's unable to properly shout when calling out potential passengers.
Also me pay sana e shema no sana mintimi mpai o obi antimi nka until at times na me year to. Oh na samanfo say me pay we dia me share. Na me James give you the amishe. Be shema no say dey na me pay am yitu no mo. Pay na ma share.
Many people who were also on their bikes did not have mask on. Even when we stopped him, he refused to wear his mask, which he had hanged on his bike. His reason is simple.
Yes, you are protected right now. And the purpose of the nose mask is for me, maybe not to transfer in case I'm even infected or not to contract. But since you are wearing, you are protecting myself and yourself. So when I'm entering a crowd, I just put on my nose mask.
As we moved closer to Circle, the number of people we met without mask was increasing. This man, Mohammed, is among the many that believes the virus is a myth until he sees it.
Mommy, come, let's stop deceiving each other. Let's just be realistic. At least out of the 1,000 or 10,000 people that Nigeria has, why can't we identify one single one as a friend? That's it. And every day they keep telling us the number keep increasing. Now they'll say that it detect 20, 80. Why can't you then show us a single person that has it?
You're welcome back. So clearly, we have a problem. Very many people have a difficulty complying with the restrictions, particularly the wearing of the masks. As you know, this week, the police attempted a small swoop, or if you like it, monitoring. And at one spot, they arrested as many as 40 people who they are processing for court. Now, these 40 are looking to the potential of paying between 12,000 and 60,000 Ghana cedis for not wearing the nose masks. Or, even in addition to that, go to jail for between 4 to 10 years. The Ghana Bar Association, the grouping of lawyers in this country, is asking or has joined the crusade asking for lesser sanctions. What do you say? Does this also mean municipal assemblies like Ho, where they began with spot fines of 150 Ghana cedis and 200 cedis, will not be able to continue with that any longer? Joining me in the studio, as we advertised, Martin Pebu. He's a lawyer and rights activist. Now, if you understand some of the things Martin has done in this country, then you will not be surprised why he is a very important guest to us today. He is the man who single-handedly went to the court. And it is because of his work that today there is nothing known as non-bailable offense. If you commit any offense whatsoever and you went to the court, today you are entitled to be considered to be granted bail. Formerly, there were some offenses that were non-bailable. He has made a lot of crusade about not people's rights, including women, as it were, domestic violence. Also, Yao Echampon Boafo, who is the National Secretary of the Ghana Bar Association, is unfortunately unable to join us this moment, but a good number of the members of the Ghana Bar Association are joining us via Zoom to express their views on this crusade. Right. Let's begin with Martin Pebu in the studio. So even before the Ghana Bar Association issued a statement, you had been on the crusade asking for the sentences or the sanctions to be reduced.
Yes.
COVID-19 kills. If you are breaching the rules, that will lead to deaths and death of yourself and your family. Why should we lessen the sanction you should suffer?
Yes, Sam. So in a word, it's because the sanctions were going to cause more harm than even the harm that the risk of the spreading would cause. I mean, in a nutshell, you see, we live in a country where today some people still earn 200 Ghana cedis a month. Yes, you heard me right. 300, 400, and so on and so forth. Even the last time, because I had granted so many interviews on this matter, a certain radio station told me that the host of that program told me that, oh, there are some radio stations where people earn 150 Ghana, journalists, 150 Ghana a month. That's what the host of the program mentioned.
You're not serious.
So, yeah, that's what he said. I was shocked. Sam, that if in natural fact, we should have even started with the millions of unemployed young men. That's where we should have started from. In a country where we have millions who are unemployed is such a big national security issue. We should have looked at all of this. You see, so that's why we are imploring His Excellency to reconsider. At least he's done very well, commendably well, by reconsidering the single person in a car with no other person in. Such a person need not wear the mask. So he should add this one. The sentencing regime is draconian, beyond imagination. Yes.
So, like I said, a number of the members of the Ghana Bar Association are joining us via Zoom. One of them is Papa Kwesi Esrifi Dankwa. He's a former head of legal and administration of the Trades Union Congress in Ghana. He's presently out of this country doing employment and labor work for the globe. Thank you very much for your time, Papa.
Yeah, thank you, Samson. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very clearly.
Great.
Right. Good. So as someone where you sit and where you have worked, we have heard somebody, for example, who is not in employment, who says, okay, not exactly informal employment, but sells. And when he was asked why he wasn't wearing a mask, he said for the whole day, all the money he had made was 5 Ghana cedis. And he had asked about the mask, and he was told he could get it as 7 Ghana cedis. Is this a justification for the call by the Ghana Bar Association for lesser sanctions?
Thank you very much, Samson, and I'm happy to be joining you. You know, COVID-19 has exposed, at least for me, one of the big things COVID-19 has exposed in terms of Ghana is the lack of social protection measures for an economy that is 80% informal. And if the state want to impose public health protections which have consequences for people's livelihoods, I think the state must be in the state want to impose sanctions. The state must be in a position to provide support. And so for me, it is important that the state looks, for example, at how best they can support people in terms of providing masks. Because, with the example you just gave, if somebody is in the informal economy, the person is not making enough, the person says he makes 5 CDs at the end of the day, clearly this person would need social protection support, least of which is ensuring that this person's life is protected through the wearing of masks, especially if the state is mandating and imposing it. Now, this is not to say that, COVID-19 is, where I am now, it's a very, very serious thing. And if you go on the public transport, for example, without wearing your mask, you are going to be fined for it. But there are also social protection measures that ensure that people have the means to live and people have the means to acquire these masks. For example, I can acquire the mask, but my commune sent me a mask via the post. I didn't pay for it. I had 2 masks that was sent to me by my commune via the post, and then my office gave us some mask, and I bought some masks myself. So at least the state is asking you to do something.
Papa, translate the circumstance in Brussels to Ghana. When you say your commune sent you mask, what will we say in Ghana? Is it your district or your constituency or what?
No, I think it will be the district.
Okay.
I think it will be the district.
All right.
I suspect it will be the district.
All right.
I mean, that's the local government, the most local of the governance structure that would be in charge of a particular community, for example, or a number of communities, for example. So this is kind of the district. That because then they know who is where. They have the data, they have the house numbers, they have the number of people in the houses for each house, and so on. So then it's easy. Now, COVID has exposed all these things as failing in how we have organized our country and how we have run our state over a period. And I think, just trying to impose the biggest hammer on the most vulnerable in society without consideration of these social implications, well, it's well-meaning, but I think it will be ineffective.
Okay. Now, Papa, hold on there. I have Ekuya Egwakun and also Andrew Adugu on Zoom also joining us. Now, let's begin with you, Andrew, briefly. You are in the Volta region and working with the Attorney General's Department. Not long ago, you told us some very good news about how the local or the municipality had decided to impose spot fines, which are far less. Are they still embarking on this, or because the president has issued an EI, which applies to the whole country, they have stopped? How effective is compliance with the mask wearing and protocols?
Thank you very much, Samson, and good afternoon to your cherished listeners. My information is that the whole municipal assembly has stopped the spot fine directive or the task force which is enforcing the spot fine after the president's directive that not wearing a mask becomes a crime, and the coming into force of EI 164 on the wearing of mask being a crime under the Imposition of Restrictions Act.
Remind us again, what were the fines, and do you see a difference between when the fines were in place and now that it is the Imposition of Restrictions Act sanctions that are in place?
Okay, so the whole municipal assembly had a fee fixing regulation which had indicated that if you fail to comply with a government health or environmental regulation, you would be subject to pay certain fines. And the lowest then was 150, rising up to 250 to 500. But when COVID came in, they decided that instead of paying all those amounts, you rather pay 20 Ghana cedis. And that's when they get you, when you are not wearing the mask, they make you pay the fine and they give you a mask on the spot. So that was what was going on until the president's directive and EI 164 came.
Okay.
Has anything changed? Nothing has changed. A lot of people are not wearing the mask. And I have not seen any enforcement by the police in Ho, at least, to speak. I have not seen that.
Okay. Now, hold on there. Let's get to Ekuya Egwakun. Thank you very much, Ekuya, also for joining us on COVID and the law. What do you make of what Andrew just tells us about the circumstance in Ho, where people were liable to a fine of 20 cedis? And if you didn't have the mask, they would give you one on the spot and take 20 cedis from you. Do you prefer that to the present nationally applied legislation? Hello, Ekuya. So, Martin, is what whole municipal assembly was doing what you and others were looking for when you began the campaign for lesser sanctions?
Yes, definitely. You see, let's have a very low fine that is realistic that is, what do you call it, commensurate with people's incomes, but not the current regime where somebody has to work 3 years, 4 years in order to raise that money. I mean, in penology, you don't have such a situation. Yes, that somebody has to work 3 years and over. Even for some people, there are people earning 200 Ghana cedis. They will need more than 3 years income to be able to pay the fine. So such a situation is totally unacceptable. Okay, and so, and most especially, yes, apart from the sport fine, you know, we've asked for the non-custodial sentence, specifically having some form of cleaning, sweeping around, community sentencing. Okay, they will ask you to sweep some streets, ask you to sweep in front of the National Theatre, some monuments and all that, or help to clean. That would be very useful, especially for the millions who are unemployed. You see, yeah, so we are not saying that people should not be punished, but we are looking for realistic punishment sanctions that people can fulfill. Okay.
Ekia can hear us now. Ekia, let's hear your take on this.
My position is that the whole idea of having the sanctions is to deter people from going ahead. It's deterrent anyway. I would say that yes, the sanctions are a bit high. I mean, I'm wondering how the average man on the street can afford to pay even the barest minimum. But what I can say is that a whole idea, what COVID is a public health issue. Once it becomes a public health issue, it moves beyond the individual human rights again, and it becomes a public issue. And we owe one another the duty to ensure that we don't infect one another. So I see the law as not necessarily as punishment per se, but more as deterring people from going out unmasked. I think that what we can do is to sit down, like has been said, if the Bar Association and all other associations, we can all sit down holistically and decide that, and then, well, maybe what the sanctions we have currently are a bit too high, so that we all agree on what we think is an appreciable fine.
Okay, the Bar Association, yes. The Bar Association's suggestion to the government is this, and in paragraph 3 of the statement, they say, much as punishments ought to be meted out to persons who flout and contravene laws, the GBA is concerned with and finds the punishments imposed in respect of persons who breach Act 1012 and EI 164 harsh. It is our view that the punishments imposed by the provisions of Section 6 of Act 1012 and paragraph 4.2 of EI 164 are severe, and further that may culminate in the imposition of custodial sentences. The GBA is apprehensive that the prisons which are presently congested may shortly be teeming with convicts who are unable to pay the fines imposed by the courts under such law. Now, the GBA suggestion is the penalty should be not less than 10 penalty units, that is 120 Ghana cedis, and not more than 150 penalty units. That will give us how much?
They say 1,008.
That will be like 1,800 Ghana cedis. Do you subscribe to that?
I do, because you'd realize that the persons actually flouting are those who cannot even afford anyway. Something you and I can afford. I think I have various masks in my vehicle. So even if I forget to take one, once I sit in my vehicle, I know there's a mask in a vehicle. But it's the average person out there on the streets, the market women, the trotro mates, those who cannot even afford, I mean, what I would say, 3 square meals a day, are the ones flouting. So, yes, I mean, that should be. And what I would also suggest is that if you impose a law that places burden on people, what the government should be doing is to try through the district assemblies, through the various associations, to make masks available.
For free?
So that when someone, yes, goes out there, you know that the district assemblies have made masks available for this community, or maybe the market women associations have been provided with masks, so that all market women have masks. The GPLTU has been provided with masks, so we know that all their members have that. But where we impose burdens, where we impose laws that places burdens and we are not making provisions for them, then it becomes problematic. So yes, I do subscribe. I'm a GBA member, and I do subscribe to our position.
Okay. Now, thank you, and hold on there. I'll return to you and Papa, but joining us is the Honourable Member of Parliament, Inusa Fuseni, who was an instrumental part of the passage of the Imposition of Restrictions Act, and who, even after the passage, has not been excited about particularly the sanctions regime. Thank you very much, Honourable Inusa Fuseni, for joining us.
Thank you, Samson.
Right. So, the GBA, which you are a member of, certainly has heard the cries that some of you, were making out there. It says that instead of 12,000 Ghana cedis, from 12,000 Ghana cedis to 60,000 Ghana cedis, we should be looking at 120 Ghana cedis and 1,200. Then we could also look at 1 month imprisonment and not more than 2 years, instead of what you did in Parliament, which ties the hand of the President. What would you say?
Well, something I think that the call by the GBA Ghana Bar Association for a relook at the sentencing regime is proper and appropriate in view of the social phenomenon that would come about as a result of the enforcement of the Section 6 of the Imposition of Restrictions Act against persons who fail, refuse, or neglect to wear face masks. Because we don't have the prisons that will contain the number of people who will simply violate this law. And the last speaker captured it succinctly when she said that the people who cannot afford face masks are probably in the majority, and to punish them for not wearing face masks when they are incapable in the first place of procuring one for themselves is probably unfair. Let me hasten to add that during the debate, in fact, when the bill was introduced in Parliament, the Attorney General was of the view that incarceration for a breach of Act 1013 should be between 3 months and 6 months. Between 3 months and 6 months. And so when you work out the penalty unit, that will fall within the bracket, the lower brackets of what the GBA is suggesting, but not the upper bracket. It was in Parliament that some members of the Parliament, against our caution, raised the sanctions regime. And we have seen that what we have done has resulted in egregious violation of Section 6 of the Imposition of Restrictions Act. But even if the President wanted the wearing of masks to be mandatory and to be punished for non-compliance, it is my view that the President ought not to have relied on the restrictions of the Imposition Bill. Because the restrictions of Imposition Bill derives its locus, its mandate from Article 24, It talks about movement, not the conduct, not the appearance of people.
Okay.
So I was thinking that if the president were minded to impose a sanction, then quickly, as done in the case of the restriction of impositions bill, a new provision could be brought to amend the imposition of restrictions bill or even the criminal code by making the non-wearing of masks a punishable offense, and then we could appropriately, designate a sentencing regime for it, consistent with misdemeanor. It should be a misdemeanor.
Right.
In fact,
even if it were a misdemeanor, the GBA's call is that the penalty should be not less than 120 Ghana cedis and not more than 1,080, 1,800, right?
1,800.
1,800 Ghana cedis.
Yes.
And then if it came to prison terms, not less than 1 month and not more than 2 years. Will that be a good amendment to make?
2 years for not wearing a face mask.
Good.
2 years for not wearing a face mask. If we find a vaccine, where will coronavirus be? That you will still be serving a term of imprisonment for not wearing a face mask for coronavirus, for prevention of coronavirus, when the disease would have gone. I mean, the upper limit is too high.
Okay.
I just think that people, you want voluntary compliance. The law should be aimed at ensuring voluntary compliance.
Right.
Bearing in mind that there are recalcitrant people who will not voluntarily comply, and so you punish them.
What can you do? What can you do in Parliament to get this reviewed, amended? Because as it is now, the president's hands are tied by Act 1020.
Well, I have, in fact, let me acknowledge that I received a call from the former dean of the Faculty of Law, Professor Koshiga, who raised issue about this about a week ago.
Okay.
So I have started discussions with some members of Parliament. Today I am here with the majority leader, and I will prompt him on the sensibilities and the concerns of people in the enforcement of the law.
Okay.
And see what his take would be. It is important that we build consensus on this matter so that we can get the Attorney General to introduce an amendment bill in Parliament for a reduction in the sentencing regime.
Thank you so very much, Honorable Yunus Hussaini. Right. I'm coming back to the studio with Martin here, but I saw Papa Esifi Dankwa, shaking his head when Inusa, spoke against the threshold of the recommendations by the GBA. You think that is too much, Papa?
I think there should be no prison term. I mean, it really doesn't make sense to me that people should be sent to prison where it's an enclosed space. Most of the time, COVID would spread. People had more risk because they didn't have 20 cedis or so to buy a mask. So I don't think there should be. I agree that there should be fines because you have to have some form of deterrence. But I think the focus should be improving compliance. That should be all of us, our focus. Because if this is a public health emergency, the point is how do we get as many people to comply? And if that becomes where our energies are, we will, for example, say that the whole point is not to have some designed mask. The point from scientists is you should have a face covering.
Right.
That is the first step. Have a face covering. So as many people that can have face covering, please have a face covering. And then the second thing should be, how can we get, as I said earlier, which was kind of supported by my sister, how can we get district assemblies and so on to provide masks for people who can't have it?
Right.
If our energy is for compliance, we will provide as much as we can for people to be able to comply. And those who cannot comply, we can fine. We will fine you as many times as you don't have a mask. But we will have a low fine that you can pay as many times.
Okay. Thank you very much, Papa, for making time to join us all the way from the Brussels. Thank you very much indeed. So I want to finish also up with Akua and Andrew. And thank you very much, Papa. We hope to have you again another time to look at another matter that you have written extensively about leave and what employers should be doing with people who don't want to go on leave, who should go on leave, and so on and so forth. Akua, what will be your final comment, particularly to the state, to ensure that this becomes a reality?
I didn't get you on that.
Akua.
I think that the whole point is not about the collection of money or imposition of fines when someone. The whole point is not about the collection of monies, or you see, the interest is not in the fines, but the whole idea is to ensure that people comply, because you and I know that COVID is so infectious, so that once I step out there and I could be asymptomatic. So when I step there and I'm on mask, look, I could possibly go out there and infect several other people I come into contact with. So it is not about, okay, let's find people once they get out there, because the disease is more serious than just imposing fines. So yes, there could be fines, but then there should be some form of, that's what I'm saying, that the whole idea is about deterrence. So if someone knows that, look, if I step out there and I flout the law, I could be facing some custodial sentence. And that would put me on my toes to remember that, look, once I step out there, even if I'm forgetting, let me quickly get myself a mask. But if all we are considering is that, look, it's not like a traffic where you flout traffic regulations and you are being fined. But this has serious health implications I don't think the whole idea should be on fines, but then we should also add custodial sentences to deter people out there.
Okay, thank you so very much, Akua Egokun. And let's finish up with Andrew. Andrew, what do you think? Akua and Papa Dankwa seem to suggest that, like you guys were doing in Ho, we should be handing people the mask. We should find ways of providing them the mask or the face covering or face shield so that they would protect themselves rather than being interested in punishing them.
Great. Before I even answer your question, let me provide some perspective. But I must first of all issue this caveat. I am not speaking for the Ghana Bar Association, but as a member, as a secretary for the Volta Bar and a member of the Bar Council, and I was involved in the taking of that decision. So I can give you a perspective of what we looked at when we're looking at the sanctions. And just as I mentioned, I'm not speaking for the bar, but with somebody who has knowledge on how the decision was arrived at.
All right.
Our main concern, or the understanding we had, was that the EI 164, that is, if you're not wearing a mask, it becomes an offense. The offense would have to, you have to go and look at Section 6 of the Imposition of Restrictions Act.
That's right.
And there are various restrictions that if you breach, there will be sanctions. So the punishment regime that was proposed was also looking at the sanctions for the other restrictions that people breach. For example, if you go to church or you gather people at a place or something of a sort, we're looking at the punishment for that regime. That is how come we pegged it at 2 years, so that even for other restrictions, we could look at that as the highest form.
You
would have realized that that would even be half of the minimum restrictions.
That's right.
So on that score, that was why that requirement was there. So you will see in the GBA statement, there's a requirement for reduction of the punishment in Section 6. And also we consider paragraph 4E of EA 164, which has got to do with the punishment one will be meted with when you don't wear a mask.
Right.
So let's put that in perspective. We are talking about the general sanction regime for not complying with restrictions. So it's broader than just the face mask.
That's right.
So on the issue of what you have stated about not wearing masks and what whole municipal assembly was doing, I think that is the way to go. So assuming that police are enforcing this, they meet somebody who is not wearing a mask, and assuming the person has the virus, are the police not putting themselves at risk? Do they have PPEs once they go on this enforcement? Do they have places where they can hold them so that you don't endanger other people who probably don't have the virus? This is what we should be looking at.
Right.
So we are dealing with a particular situation. The solution should be all-encompassing. And I would want to urge people that let's not flout the law. It's very possible that people may flout the law without necessarily even knowing that they are flouting the law. Forgetfulness.
Right.
We are in a new regime. Things are happening. People are not used to wearing these things. So we must get people, for us, we have already stated, it's a public health concern. We must get people to understand and comply easily and not make enforcement very difficult for people. So that's my opinion on that particular subject matter.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us via Zoom. We'll return and continue in the studio. And if we have some small time to, we'll have some of our viewers and listeners join us. So, Martin, this was such a shot in the arm for the campaign to have the GBA speak.
Yes.
Of course, there were people who were already asking, where is the GBA? They must speak. And they came forward and did this. So this is a shot in the arm for that crusade.
Rightfully so.
But what else should be done beyond issuing the statement and doing the advocacy as you guys are doing right here?
Wow. Now maybe we should be looking at a petition. We should be looking at a petition because you see the Attorney General is very, very busy. So sometimes it's even possible that she's not heard what's going on radio. Okay, so, and we have spoken about this petition for long, but the problem is that you and I, you know, every day we are in court, very, very busy trying to earn a living. So this activism is on the side, and maybe out of here, we'll look at a petition, present a formal one.
Right. What do you say? The GBA expressed concern that even in this regime when the sanctions are so much, so high, people are just flouting the EIs with abandon. Now we're asking that it should be reduced. What can you expect?
No, I don't think, you know, when we come to theories of punishment, you see, the deterrence doesn't necessarily prevent people from committing the offense. Look, yesterday on my way to the office, I passed through Westlands. The Westlands police station is next to the polling, the registration center. And I saw people very, very close to each other, less than 1 meter apart. You know, the EI, is it 64, says that there should be social distance of at least 1 meter.
Right.
Most of them were very close to each other, right in front of a police station. I'm sure the police looked at it and they thought that, well, they just couldn't do much about it. So the point we are making is that we should increase the education. Let's increase the education on the effectiveness of wearing the mask, okay, so that we would, once we tune people psychologically, then also we reduce the sentences drastically. Then, of course, we let the law take its course. But we should be careful not to use this law to imprison so many people. Remember, last Sunday, I went on social media to state that, you know, in Kumasi Central Prison, they had 1,920 inmates for a facility that was built for 600. Yes, I know in the past you did some great work.
All across the country, the prisons are containing about double or more the number that they were built to contain.
Yes, I remember years ago you said you did some research, your LLB papers on it, said Kwame Boateng did locked and forgotten. Yes, His Excellency did well. Later in the week, he released about 792.
That's right.
But like we say, Oliver asks for more. We'll ask His Excellency to do more because the congestion in the prisons is just too much. They are living in hell.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, like Andrew Adugu said, the GBA is looking at the holistic situation of the punishment regime for breaching any COVID-19 protocol. So, for example, in EI 134, paragraph 3, religious bodies are allowed to congregate, but they are to do so with not with a maximum number of 100 congregants.
Yes.
And they are supposed to also do disinfection, wear face mask, wash hands, and provide the hand washing facilities and sanitizers, among others. If the law is being amended to say exact 20 CDs, will that be sufficient for such a situation?
Yes, it should. It should. So that, you see, Sam, as I said, it's not just the amendment, but also we increase first and foremost the education.
Okay.
You see, we need education more because we are all scared. We are all very scared. That's why we are not going near the voter registration centers, right? Yeah, so let's ramp up the education, ratchet it up. Then the fines will just be collateral. You see, this is not the means for raising revenue for government of Ghana. No. The government itself is very much interested in protecting us. As he said, the first duty of the state is to protect the citizens. So we should put in more resources at educating, and especially what you raised earlier, distributing more masks for the poor. In a population where we have millions who are unemployed, we should be looking at the social protection measures. What are we doing for the unemployed? For those who are earning 200, for 300, rather than concentrating on we will punish you, we will, as the police will arrest you and throw you in jail. You say it? Yes. So the 20 and 30 guard, those ones, yes, they will fall in.
So the reality of even overcrowding the prisons more than they presently are congested is. I don't know how to describe it. Because what the police did, they said they just stepped out somewhere, is it at
CMB? Yeah, 40 market women.
They just stepped out, and within a short time, they had picked up 40 people.
Yes.
These 40 people, the least that they will be asked to pay in court will be 12,000. If they can't get the 12,000, they go to jail.
4 years. 4 years, solid. The judge, and you know it very well, the judge can't reduce it by even a single day. You see, so, and that's just going to destroy the family because those women are breadwinners. So if you take that such a woman to jail, the multiplier effect, you are looking at starving at least 5 kids, you know, I mean 5 human beings because each household, you see. So it's good that so far we haven't heard the police arraigning them in court. So far, I think the police have done quite well, very well, because they themselves see that this law, if they want to arrest everybody, the prisons will be full. We will not get space.
Because I'm driving around and I'm seeing many people not wearing the mask, and I see police around the place, but they are not doing anything to them. What do you think? What Papa Esefi Dankwa is telling us about what is happening in Brussels? He's sitting there and he has received a mail, a post, and the package is face mask. He's going to use them. At his workplace, he has been giving some as well. Ekuya is also saying, yes, I'm a lawyer, and she's a lawyer, she manages a firm too, and she says, I'm a lawyer, I know punishment is good, but I don't think it's about the punishment. It should be about getting people to comply. What other measures should we look at beyond reducing the sanctions?
Yeah, so we'll repeat again. I join Papa in saying that let the district assemblies, I know they are overstretched, but we should be innovative. We should ask for, what do you call it, sponsorship. The private companies, I know they've donated to the COVID-19 fund. Yes, maybe part of the money should be used to provide the nose mask for our fellow citizens. You say, yes. So that should be what we should be looking at, because a lot of people have donated to the fund. So in the interim, they can take some of the money, buy more of the nose masks, the ones that we produce locally, etc., and distribute. Let's increase the education. It's all about education, education, education. So when we've had enough, then we will look at how to punish recalcitrants.
In whole, like Andrew says, they would have given you the masks, you pay 20 cedis, then they give it to you. Because of what came, they have stopped, because they can't do otherwise, they have stopped. And he says he can't even see the enforcement team around the place.
Yeah.
Why should that be the case?
Sam, I think I've resolved
Shouldn't
that.
the district assemblies also take a role to play?
Yeah. Definitely, definitely, the assemblies can help. But once central government has stepped in with the law, then it means that the assemblies have to be seen to be within the law. That's how come they cannot continue.
But the people are their people. They can buy the mask and give it to them.
Yes, that one, you're definitely, you're right. Maybe we should, perhaps you should create a forum to interview some DCs and MMCs, right? Yes, maybe that would jolt them. Once you say you want to interview him, he'll begin to think, hey, you know, maybe you want to look good by the time of the interview so they can do something.
Okay.
And our petition to, I think, right away from here, we'll work on it.
All right. Okay. All right. This has been covered and the law. This is your legal light and health law in these trying times. My guest in the studio has been Martin Pebu. He's a lawyer and rights activist. And we were joined on Zoom by the Honorable Inusa Fuseni, who has given us something very exciting to go home with, that he's speaking to the majority leader. And after having been spoken to by Professor Kumado, is it, or Koshiga? Yes, he's also taking steps to ensure that this will be looked at. We spoke to Andrew Adugu, we spoke to Ekia Egakum, and also Papa Kwesi Dankwa. Thank you all so very much. Have a good afternoon. We'll see you again next week on another edition of COVID and the Law. I'm Samson.